Welcome to the AtlantECO podcast, where we talk about the science behind the AtlantECO project, the Atlantic Ocean, and the human adventures experienced along the way. Here, we have conversations with guests from around the world who work together so that we can better understand, manage, and protect the ocean.
What do we think about when we think about marine biodiversity? I think most people would typically think about, coral reefs. They'd maybe think about dolphins and whales and the sorts of things that we typically see on TV. And yes, all of that is important, but in fact, the majority of biodiversity, the majority of life in the ocean is microscopic. It's particularly important to understand these organisms because they essentially determine the well-being of the ocean. And that is our interest, in particular in the AtlantECO project.
The microbiome is the group of microorganisms that live in the ocean and do essential services for humanity, such as oxygen production.
What we call the plastosphere, it's the thin layer of life on the outside of plastic. There's no plastic in the ocean that doesn't possess a plastosphere.
The sea and the ocean is not a bathtub. It is not a blank slate on which organisms move around. The ocean itself moves around. That movement of the water itself, that is the seascape.
Today, humans are the largest single driving force determining the state of the planet, meaning also determining the outcome for the planet. Overfishing, plastic in the oceans, concentration of fishing rights, and especially inequality of ocean benefits are growing over time. We need to develop plans and policies to foster the potential of the ocean, but not only on the economic growth, rather by focusing on the need to conserve and rebuild marine life as the basis for sustainable oceans and equitable uses.
So an upwelling is when you have winds coming from a certain direction, pushes the surface waters away, and you get these deep, nutrient-rich waters come to the surface, creates a lot of productivity. Then you have these excess blooms and excess algae that when they die in the water column, so they sink a little bit, they will absorb a lot of oxygen out of the water. Eventually you end up with no oxygen.
Part of the success of the EU's Atlantic strategy depends on international cooperation because the ocean doesn't really know any borders. The AtlantECO project in the first months of its implementation has already had an impact on various sectors. Of course, you have contributed to implement the Belem statement because you have embraced it, I think, in its integrity by creating a new scientific community involving Europe, South Africa, Brazil, United States, Argentina, Namibia, Senegal, and other countries. Secondly, these different scientific cooperation activities are based on a first wave of multidisciplinary scientific studies, which created a new unifying framework for assessing and forecasting. And you used a combination of socioeconomic, oceanographic, ecological, and biological information. I would dare to say it's not only multidisciplinary, but it is also transdisciplinary. Thirdly, your capacity building program. You have really trained a totally new cohort of over 40 interdisciplinary scientists and marine professionals, and I'm sure you coined them for their future professional development. In terms of observational capacities, you also have established advanced standards to be used for monitoring the health status of the Atlantic microbiome, including the monitoring of microplastic, which is also very, very important. You have also connected imaging and sequencing centers in Europe, South Africa, and Brazil to enhance the standardization and the knowledge transfer, which is so important. You have created several databases, which are equally as well important. Last but not least, I think what is really and what has been really inspiring is what you did with your expedition when the Tara microbiome expedition took off and you started to travel around all the countries of the southern part of the Atlantic. With your different outreach events that you organized, you really also reached and you developed a new cohort of ocean-engaged citizens. And I think this is something where you should continue really to put a lot of effort, because One important issue is, in addition to the scientific results, that we must ensure that the results are brought back to the communities, that people who are in need of the results use them, they deploy them, they are part of it, but they can only be part of that process if they understand the importance for them.